Happy Saturday, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Good to be with you. I am Shaun Starr, live on this Saturday morning. The Shaun Starr Show on YouTube.com. Good to be with you. Hope you enjoyed your families on Friday as we settle into a brand new weekend in the aftermath of the Montreal Canadiens going through the NHL trade deadline on a day where really there was some busyness. We saw it going with Brock Nelson on the Blockbuster on Thursday. Friday for me lived up to the expectations. Massive names like Mikko Rantanen, massive names like Brad Marchand, and other high-profile players finishing the day basically on different teams than the ones they started with. All told, the NHL made 24 trades on Friday's deadline involving a total of 47 players, none of which belong to the Montreal Canadiens. As we say, good morning. Good morning, Adam, and good morning, Alex. So your initial reaction, let's hear some of your impressions after the Montreal Canadiens go through deadline day. And Yoel Armia, Christian Dvorak, David Savard are still members of the Montreal Canadiens. And of course, free agency and deadline trade week got going with the announcement of Jake Evans' 4-year contract, pays him an AAV of 2.85. So here we go with the Montreal Canadiens. Living through the deadline, and right off the hop, I got to tell you, I'm good. I'm good with what the Montreal Canadiens didn't do yesterday, and that's liquidate. As we know, they have a surplus of picks. We're talking about 7 in the first few rounds. The understanding is several reporters on Friday brought forth the news that David Savard was looked at. Yoel Armia was looked at. As a matter of fact, it was reporting that Yoel Armia and the Montreal Canadiens were offered a second-round pick. In exchange, the Montreal Canadiens decided not to go with that. As we say good morning to Eddie, what is up? Cracking on AM Ale, going to enjoy the Shaun Starr Show. Thank you for being with us, Adam Foley. Good morning, everybody. So, I want to talk about some of the quotes from David Savard, from Martin St. Louis. We'll get into some unbelievable news that we saw on Friday, as perhaps you were watching me live as we learned of the news that this guy right here, Kaden Guhle, skating in Brossard yesterday. Just great news, not only for the individual who went through, if you'll remember, one of the more fluky injuries that we've seen in a really long time, that self-inflicted lacerated quadricep muscle. So there's Guhle skating in Brossard. That's the best news. Now, as we understand it, Ken Hughes was asked about Kaden Guhle skating on Friday in the South Shore and basically came up with, there's no rush. We're going to see where this player is at. And then ultimately, depending on where the Canadiens are at situationally, then Montreal would adjust and maybe look at Kaden Guhle as a playoff push addition to the Montreal Canadiens as we talk on a massive game day. Montreal looking up at the wild card standings today with Columbus and Ottawa, 68 points for the BJs, 67 for the Sens. The Canadiens with 66 points and 20 games to go. You've got the New York Rangers also on 62 games, also with 67 points. But I suppose if we go to this quote from Martin St. Louis here, as we begin our dissection of what the Canadiens didn't do on Friday on deadline day, we talk about, Ken Hughes, and we spoke about this last week. And here's Canadiens coach Martin St. Louis on in the aftermath of deadline day, talking about how, quote, I think it was important that we got together. It's a difficult moment, stressful for certain players. The ice is a sanctuary. So we scheduled the practice at that time. It gave us a chance to go through the stressful moment together. I thought it was important. There's MSL talking about dealing with his own players and the mental challenges of understanding that you may lose a couple of core pieces. And to me, it's just another point in the Canadiens' timeline of this rebuild where, yeah, they haven't turned the corner, right? And I think yesterday's inactivity was a bit of a test. At least that's my read on it, right? Because, maybe in hindsight, maybe there are some of you that thought that the Canadiens could have got a haul for Jake Evans based on the price that some guys were acquired for yesterday. At the end of the day, what the lack of movement, as far as I'm concerned, tells us about Ken Hughes' approach to getting the Canadiens back on the fast track to winning hockey games and contending for divisions, conferences, and hopefully Stanley Cups, is that you're allowing some of these players not only to take on a challenge. Because as we spoke about last week, we knew this, and yesterday I thought it was brought to the forefront in a major way. We spoke about it on this channel last week. Ken Hughes went to Nick Suzuki and said, "You don't want me to trade your guys? You want to stay together? You don't want to lose teammates between now and the deadline? Go win games." So he put the challenge at the feet of Nick Suzuki, the captain of this team. And for me, right then and there, I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of, oh, you have opinions about how you think things should be done? Well, then force my decision one way or the other. And to me, that's how I interpret Ken Hughes going to Nick Suzuki and telling him, go win. And that's what happened. Montreal wins 5 in a row out of the Four Nations break. They lose in overtime to the Edmonton Oilers on the first of a 4-game road trip, taking us into Calgary, and a massive game. And so what this does to me is you ask your players to go out and do something, they take that challenge on, and they not only do they pass it, they ace the test. And so objective number 1 is accomplished. Who do you have on this team? Can they, for lack of a better term, sack up? Sack up. And that's exactly what they did. The leadership group, I mean, hell, look what Cole Caulfield has been doing since the Four Nation break. What's he on, a 4-game goal streak? What's he doing in terms of being a complete all-around better player, right? You can see the coaching in MSL in Cole Caulfield's game. So there you have this pattern of challenges, whether it's from the coach or whether it's from the executives, and put it at the feet of the players. And for me, the players have taken on those challenges with a great attitude, and I think they've successfully, by and large, passed a lot of those challenges. And so if we talk about, Yoel Armia for a second-round pick, do the Canadiens at this juncture, seriously, in your point of view, does Montreal need another second-round pick? And I know I'm the guy that's told you can use picks in packages and everything else. But the other thing I'm a big fan of, and I've communicated this clearly, I hope anyway, NHL teams, no different from any other sports team, right? NHL teams are a living, breathing organism. Sometimes they flourish, sometimes they don't, sometimes they stay stagnant, sometimes they're on the fast track, sometimes they live, sometimes they die. Are the Boston Bruins dying? Look at the players they unloaded yesterday. They're going to try to rebuild on the fly. Good luck. But the Montreal Canadiens are living, breathing, fresh, clean air with pink lungs. And when I look at this and I look at how the Montreal Canadiens were able to kind of maneuver their way around NHL trade deadline and not look at picks, I believe, based on the challenges, go out there and win. And they did, to the point where you and I are talking about a massive game in Calgary tonight and talking about how the Montreal Canadiens are a point out of a playoff race. And that's the challenge. And that's the reward. And I'm a big fan of looking at this group coming together, winning hockey games as they were asked to do, and the value, in my opinion, of retaining David Savard, of retaining someone like Arbor Jacky, of retaining someone like Yoel Armia, I believe is more valuable than what Yoel Armia would have brought back. Because the Canadiens, again, are a living, breathing thing. They're not robots. And the players, and you can tell that they are a very, very tight group. And Nick Suzuki was very refreshed to see teammates of his not traded at the deadline. I mean, let's talk about what David Savard had said here for a second, right? I really like this quote from David Savard. Coming to the end of your contract is less fun when you're my age. I think when you're younger, there's a certain excitement over what's going to happen in the past. I was lucky to spend a good amount of time in Columbus, but I knew when I went to Tampa Bay, I was entering a new phase, and I knew I probably wouldn't be staying there. And there was a bit of a fun side to that. Now we're going to focus on hoping to stay here, but we'll see what's going to happen. So not only does David Savard want to be here, look, we could talk about his coach in Martin St. Louis, talking about a young team. And I think these are very important. I think the Montreal Canadiens organization from top to bottom is very good at communicating to their customer, to their fan base, letting them kind of know what's happening here and some of the methods behind their decision making. And here's MSL's quote about young players on his team. When you have a young core, I think it's important to surround them with quality veterans, obviously great players too, but quality humans. We have that. I think it helps guide the youth that we have. These guys are very selfless. And I'm thinking about Josh Anderson, Brendan Gallagher, David Savard, Mike Matheson. I'm glad that he's still here. I put a lot of value into that, you guys. I put a lot of value into surrounding yourself with professional players of high character because they are trying to build a certain culture here where people are responsible for each other. And the culture of half-assing it, mail it in Friday is not acceptable here. There is a standard that is being brought into the organization. And they talk about quality humans. They talk about, again, building that culture. That's why it's important to make sure that David Savard didn't get moved for a depth round pick, that Yoel Armia means more to Jake Evans and Emil Heineman than the Canadiens getting a second round pick for him. They are 1 point out of a playoff spot. I believe you cannot rug pull Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, and all the work that this group has done. When you ask them to do it, you ask them to do it. And they did it. You can't rug pull them. You know, you have to allow them to go out there and show you that they can. And in a 5-game sample size, they forced Ken Hughes' hand. So I do believe that these veteran players, as I'll put the quote up again, I want to hammer this home. I want to hammer this home because I think it is very important. This quote that you're looking at right now tells you exactly what Montreal is trying to do within the four walls of that locker room. They want quality human. They want great players, obviously, but they want quality people that helps bring young players along. And I think a perfect example to really define that in clean, plain English, what David Savard has meant to Arbor Jacky is so understated, it's not getting enough attention in this market. It full stop is not. Arbor Jacky was, I don't want to say lost in the wilderness, but the Montreal Canadiens, I can tell you this, the Montreal Canadiens could have done a better job in how they handled and how they communicated with Arbor Jacky in his early days of being a Montreal Canadian. And things have changed 180 degrees in a really good way. And the one of the biggest reasons for that change in Arbor Jacky, why you see a more stable Arbor Jacky, a more consistent Arbor Jacky, granted there's been a little bit of a slip here, but why you see these things from Arbor Jacky, why he's fundamentally better all around, a large part of that is David Savard. End of the sentence. David Savard has been a teammate, has been an uncle, has been a father figure, has been a guidance counselor. He has been all of those things to Arbor Jacky, I can tell you with 100% certainty. And that has helped Arbor Jacky develop into the player that he is turning into, and he will get better. But that is largely because of David Savard's presence in the room, his presence on the ice, and his help off the ice with Arbor Jacky when, Jacky wasn't so sure what his point was. And so I just want to bring that to the table today to, if it helps calm you down, I suppose, with maybe, and there are people, I saw some people, there are opinions, and I get it. You have your opinion. You think you know what you want from the Montreal Canadiens. I'm not here to tell you that your opinion is wrong. I'm not here to tell you that, no, your way of thinking that the Canadiens should have traded Yoel Armia for a second round pick and all picks are good. If that's your opinion and you stand by it and you have a coherent argument, I am not here to tell you that your way of thinking is wrong. What I'm telling you and trying to point out is this is how the Canadiens are doing their business. Contrary to perhaps what you wanted to see on Friday, I'm just pointing you in the direction of understand what the coach, some of the players, and what the management is kind of doing. And I think it's okay. I think it's okay to understand that the Canadiens team is a living, breathing thing and that it evolves. And that if the Montreal Canadiens, in the worst case scenario, come out of the Four Nations break and don't shut out Ottawa and don't beat San Jose and don't take a point in Edmonton and lose to Carolina and all those things, I 100% would be here singing a different song today. And that to me just this is the hill I will die on. This is the hill I will die on. It's a living, breathing thing, and it always evolves. Be prepared to evolve with the team or not. And so that's how I've sorted through the Montreal Canadiens, putting a lot of emphasis on this culture and what they're trying to do this year. More from Martin St. Louis from Friday, right? When you have a young core, I think it's important to surround them with those veterans. That quote to me will stand out for a while. It's going to stand out for a while. And I think if we look at what else MSL had to say about the rebuild and the timeline since he's been here, right? Happy Saturday, everybody. Hope you all slept well, had a good Friday night with your friends and your family. Hope you were responsible. If not, it's okay. It's Friday. A little over 3 years ago, I took the job. I knew it was a rebuilding team, but I feel like we've progressed. I feel like we're on track to do things we've said we were going to do. Is this the year that we flip the needle? Like it's going the other way now? And to me, that's a good sign. So I see it the way Martin St. Louis sees it. The Montreal Canadiens path to consistent competitiveness, in my point of view, is well on track. And I like the fact that there is pressure from fans, there is pressure from media in regards to what they want to see the team do. But I'm a strong believer that the outside noise really doesn't penetrate the brain trust of the Montreal organization. So let me get to some of your comments before I get too far behind, because I love engaging with everybody. As we said, good morning to Adam. Hello, Alex. Eddie Frank is back here this morning. Good to see you. Aces Cafe, no news is good news, as the Montreal Canadiens play a massive game today in Calgary at 7 o'clock. You can listen to it on TSN 690. Paul from Mont Tremblant, good morning, sir. AI or Al, I'm happy they didn't empty the cupboard for an older player. And I think that's a good point, something I haven't brought up yet. As we talk about the reasons why the Montreal Canadiens didn't make a move on Friday, when we saw over 20 teams and over 47 players moved, including, I saw somebody bring this up, Morgan. Shea Weber is a Chicago Blackhawk now. His contract traded on deadline day yesterday. Always makes me laugh. But I think this is a money point here. This is a money point about empty the cupboard. I don't think there was any emptying of the cupboards. I think by and large, whether you believe the Canadiens should have moved their UFAs or not, I think I hope we can all agree that never even for a microsecond in time on deadline day Friday was Ken Hughes ever contemplating deviating from the plan. Like no blue chippers, no hopeful, good, higher end prospects were ever going to be dealt on Friday. That's not the environment the Canadiens are in my opinion, anyway. But when we talk about this comment here about bringing in older players, it's just another challenge at the feet of Nick Suzuki, who I think I could feel a little bit bad for, because get ready, Nick Suzuki, you're going to be playing, 24 minutes a night, as long as your team is really in the mix, in the thick of the fight for a playoff spot, because there's really nobody played behind you, Nick Suzuki. But the challenge is Jake Evans maybe spells some relief playing in that role. If Jake Evans finds himself on a heater, Owen Becks gets more reps in a high-profile position on a team doing something I have said I've wanted the Canadiens to do since I started this podcast back in November. The one thing I want, and I think you can go back to all the videos I've done since November, playoffs, schmayoffs, whatever. They got in, great. If they didn't, I'm good. What I wanted this team to do, and they are doing it, here we are talking live on the 8th day of March in 2025. What I wanted more than anything from Montreal was to be able to play games that frickin' mattered in March. I wanted to see how the leadership group, how the young defensemen, how Sam Montembeault, how Martin St. Louis, all of those players and everyone in between. I wanted more than anything else this year, with the understanding that I'm not expecting big things. And maybe that's why I have the attitude I have, is because I went into this season thinking nothing big, nothing huge, no earth-shattering moves, no massive leaps forward. I'm a patient guy. I'm a grinded out guy. I understand the process. There is no such thing as overnight success. There is a path to get there. And this point about older players not being brought in on Friday is a challenge at the feet of Jake Evans. It's a challenge at the feet of Nick Suzuki. It's a challenge at the feet of Owen Beck. Go out there and make it happen. And maybe someone from Laval is promoted. The Laval Rocket, obviously, in a massive, massive weekend with the Rochester Americans playing for first place atop the North Division in the AHL. So not only, and I saw a couple of people point this out yesterday about, and we knew this, we talked about this. This was obviously very logical, right? That the Montreal Canadiens were going to paper a couple of guys to make sure that they're on the Laval roster, getting ready for their playoffs. And the Laval Rocket, by the way, can hold the lead to the Rocket, losing 4-3 on Friday night. So massive, massive game as Rochester Americans basically carried a 1-goal lead into the third of Friday's game at Place Bell, but couldn't handle a 4-goal run by the Rocket, who skated off with that 4-3 win in the first of a back-to-back. Two teams meet up again Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. I'm going to have Sean Campbell join me all week on the channel as we get ready for the Laval Rocket and their push towards a playoff, a deep playoff run. That's the hope, obviously, and perhaps the wants and needs in the aftermath of the trade deadline and what John Sedgwick, the GM in Laval, is ultimately going to do. So the Rocket are going well. We'll see what they do if they could sweep the series, right? But that point to me is once again, all the goodwill and all the good work the Canadiens have done is being rewarded. You know how it's being rewarded? It's being rewarded by trust from management. And I think that speaks volumes to players. It speaks volumes to a guy like Nick Suzuki, who had an opinion, asked management to not do this, not do that. And the Canadiens said, "Oh, you want those things? Well, then here's your end of the bargain." And Nick Suzuki more than held up his end of the bargain, and he got rewarded for that. And to me, that's how good organizations are run, in my estimation. So more challenges in a massive game today, because I think when we look at what happened in the NHL on Friday, which, by the way, I mean, can we agree? Can we agree to something here? Why would the NHL play games on trade deadline day? Like, why? Why were there, how many, 6 games in the NHL on Friday night where you had 47 players wearing a new jersey than the ones they wore on Thursday this week? The Winnipeg Jets, by the way, big win over New Jersey. The Jets, for me, I think they might be one of the bigger losers from trade deadline day. We'll get into winners and losers later, but a massive game for the Canadiens on the out-of-town scoreboard, because the Washington Capitals at home put up a 4 spot in the third period and beat Detroit in a 5-2 final. So that's great news for the Canadiens, because early on, it was like 2-0 Detroit 7 minutes into that game. Larkin and Moritz Seider scoring goals in the first 7 minutes, and then basically it was all Washington all third period long. And by the way, no goals for Alex Ovechkin, if that's something you're paying attention to. So what does that mean? Basically, in the standings, the Red Wings, having played one more game than Montreal now, have the same points, 66 points to the Canadiens. So it is a massive logjam from the top wildcard team in Columbus. The BJs have lost back-to-back. The Ottawa Senators coming off a win, coming off massive additions to their team. Big winners, in my opinion, were the Ottawa Senators on deadline day on Friday. So Ottawa right now is 67 points. They have the tiebreaker over the Rangers. The Rangers on 62 games and 67 points. Rangers have 6 wins in their last 10, but they are coming off a loss. The Montreal Canadiens have 30 wins in 62 games and have 66 points. They also have won 6 of their last 10, but coming off that 3-2 loss in Edmonton in overtime. We spoke about the Red Wings, the Boston Bruins, fire sale, bye, including their captain to the Florida frickin' Panthers. The New York Islanders, Brock Nelson, they're done. Philadelphia Flyers, they've lost 2 in a row. Scott Laughton to the Maple Leafs, they're done. Pittsburgh Penguins, they're done. And the sad sack Buffalo Sabres, they're done. So there we go. So we have our top 2 wildcard teams, and I think you have 3 teams in the Rangers, Canadiens, and Red Wings that are legitimately, obviously, very much in the mix. I think the Boston Bruins, when they lost to Ottawa, I think that was it for them. I think that was it for them. And then obviously the big trades that we saw on Friday from Beantown. And maybe the New Jersey Devils, something happens there with Jack Hughes out for the season with shoulder surgery. The Devils have 72 points and currently sit with the 3rd spot in the Metro Division. So it's going to be a wild race. It's going to be a wild race to the finish. And obviously, you're hoping, if you're a Canadiens fan, that Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, Uri Slafkovsky, and then the challenge of everybody else behind that top line is going to be up to the task of getting it done and picking up games and picking up points in a very crucial time of the Montreal Canadiens season. As we spoke about, Owen Beck going to get a good run. But that's where I thought maybe if there was a move to be made, because I'm all for, as I said already, it opens the door for challenges to some of the young players to see what they've got, right? But Owen Beck's playing anywhere between 7 and 10 minutes a night. And that's why I made the comment I made earlier. Okay, Nick Suzuki, you didn't want to see your guys get traded. Well, I hope you're ready to play like 26 minutes a night. As Matthew Blackman comments, picks don't hurt if you're trying to make a trade at the draft. And that's why we said, I think the Canadiens have like 7 picks in the first few rounds of the draft. They have picks to move. They have prospects to move. They've got guys to move. And I think the other thing that we learned yesterday was that Oliver Kapanen, who's having a good year in the Sweden Hockey League or Swedish Hockey League, SHL, is very likely to come join the Canadiens when his season ends. So good news there to see. Remember, Kapanen was someone that made the Canadiens out of camp when camp opened earlier this fall. So more comments coming in. Peter Puck, good to see you this morning. I don't have an issue with Hughes standing pat, sticking to the plan. Morgan, Canadiens did make paper transactions with Dobesh and Owen Beck, making them eligible. What the hell is a paper transaction? It's exactly what it is. It's the Canadiens didn't play yesterday, and so you're basically allowed to send someone back to Laval on paper, literally on paper. You demote them to Laval, so technically they are now AHL roster players, and then you can call them back up so that in that little loophole, by papering these guys, they are now on the Laval roster before the deadline, thus making them eligible for the Rocket playoff run. So when the Canadian season ends, they can go back to Laval where they're eligible to help the Rocket hopefully to a Calder. Good morning, fuck's sakes. What's up? Adam Foley. It's for the Laval so they can play in the playoffs. As my boy Rick Springhetti in the chat this morning explaining what's going on here. Aces Cafe, a happy family, everybody. Yeah, as we were talking about Arbor Jacky earlier. And that's, it brings home the point, and it helps when you have prospects, and it helps that your cupboard is filled with picks, because you can have the moves Ken Hughes made yesterday, and that's not make a move and allow your players to continue to grow. And I'll reemphasize the point because it does matter. Hockey to me is the most team dynamic sport in North America, right there with football. And you got to go to war with your brothers, and you got to be able to trust them. And it's very important that you have a very set type of personality in that clubhouse, in that locker room. And that's what the Montreal Canadiens are trying to do. And Jeff Gorton has been someone that has been building hockey teams for a long time. Ken Hughes has been a power agent for his entire career. It's how he made his bones. And these guys know exactly how locker rooms should work. They know bad ones from good ones. And Martin St. Louis, who is a Hall of Fame player, a Stanley Cup champion, a member of Team Canada, obviously has a first-class education, a PhD in what makes for good culture. I mean, this man knows of what he speaks. JR Maverick, what's up? Management team is brilliant. How many times did teams load up with quality prospects only to then try to find quality veterans to help nurture this young group? We have quality veterans. You do have quality veterans, and those veterans are teaching the soon to be veterans how to operate. Don't forget, you can get all your Shaun Starr merch at theshaunstarshow.com. Free shipping anywhere in Canada. If you're in Montreal, we can get it to you the day you order it if you order before 2 p.m. So not only does it give all these young guys a chance, the Montreal Canadiens did have an offer for Yoel Armia on a second-round pick, but obviously they say thanks but no thanks, and I'm good with that. What's your reaction to the fact that the Montreal Canadiens were looking at a second-round pick for Yoel Armia, but they decided to hold on to the player? The other bit of interesting news we heard from Ken Hughes on Friday was, and we spoke about that during the week, that if there was a big swing, a big move to be made, the Montreal Canadiens were going to be aggressive to go out there and try to pull that trigger. And whether it was the Canadiens looking at, and I can tell you that Montreal did inquire, and they were poking around Dylan Cousins. Montreal was interested in Dylan Cousins. I think they were also poking around on JJ Peterka. I think the Canadiens were also poking around Jordan Kyrou. But as we saw with the asking price for what some of these guys went for yesterday, the Canadiens weren't in the business. And I'm glad the Montreal Canadiens didn't go out and spend what they needed to spend to get a guy like Dylan Cousins. I don't know if he's going to work in Ottawa, but I'm afraid to understand what the Canadiens would have had to have given up to Buffalo in order to get Dylan Cousins out of Sabres land. But Kevin Adams traded him inside the division, which I'm a huge fan of. Excuse me. Good morning, Rick. Anyone remember when Marc Bergevin told his team, you want loyalty? Go get a dog. Think the players were motivated by that line? You know, I think there's a little bit of a difference in that sense, right? Like Marc Bergevin's timeline as general manager of the Montreal Canadiens to me is fascinating. From when he was first introduced to replace Pierre Gauthier, to how it all ended in Montreal between Bergevin and I'll say the collective. And by that, I mean the fan base, the media, and it just deteriorated like so consistently every year. It just seemed to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And Marc Bergevin, as some have pointed out here, the Montreal Canadiens for the latter part of Bergevin's tenure, I think were a very cold organization. I think they were cold. I think they were stagnant. I think they were, in their own minds, very certain of what they were going to do. And I can understand that part. I can understand how you have a vision and, you know, you've been in the league, you know it inside and out. I can understand how you can have kind of that attitude, that ego, you know, but ego to me is not a very good thing when we're talking about building a team. And Marc Bergevin, you know, who did good things. He did good things in his 9.5 years here. But that line of you want loyalty, get a dog. I mean, that was the beginning of the end, really. And then, of course, he goes out and gives Brendan Gallagher a crazy contract. And good on Gallagher for doing his best out there. And Gallagher's a warrior. And to me, Gallagher is the type of player that I wouldn't want to lose. You know what I mean? Like I would, if I were an owner of the Montreal Canadiens or a partner of the Montreal Canadiens, it would be my opinion that Brendan Gallagher would be a Montreal Canadian for life. And that means, you know, he retires or whatever, or let's say his contract gets moved a la Brad Marchand one day. I would happily bring Brendan Gallagher back. I would love Brendan Gallagher to be an ambassador for my organization. Like I just said, he would be if he wanted to be a Hab for life, I would make him a contract and I would have him in player development. I would have him helping some of the younger guys. You know, to me, what Brendan Gallagher means, and you saw him at times during this week talking about, you know, the team 5-0, going to Edmonton, big wins, big challenges, everything he says about some of the younger players and showing them. when I talk to you about culture and I talk to you about what it means to wear the Montreal Canadiens sweater, Brendan Gallagher to me is that guy all day, 24/7. And we've known this about him forever, right? Like, how many times did you think to yourself, man, if Brendan Gallagher was a crop, I'd love to plant a whole field of Brendan Gallagher's and grow a whole crop of Gallagher, right? I want Brendan Gallagher and his time in Montreal to bear more fruit to the next wave of players. That's how important I see a guy like Brendan Gallagher. And I think to bring it back and to finish my thought on this comment here, um, what Ken Hughes, Jeff Gordon, and Martin St. Louis have done, they have brought a more human element, a more logical, and also a more business-like approach to rebuilding the Montreal Canadiens. I believe, excuse me, I believe the Montreal Canadiens have reprioritized. I think Montreal has reprioritized winning and establishing that culture back in Montreal versus everything else is now secondary or on the third or fourth tier. Ken Hughes always makes moves at the draft. No need to make any rash moves during the season. Stay the course. Reinforcements are coming. I think there's something to that. Certainly, I think there's something to that. We talk about, you know, the amount of cap space the Canadiens are going to have, and they're going to put Carey Price on LTIR. The salary retention slots for Jake Allen, and Jeff Petrie are done after this season. That's going to free up monies. Carey Price's contract gets moved. That's going to free up even more. There's a possibility that Montreal could have anywhere between $21 and $24 million to play with, and they've got prospects, and they've got picks, and they have good veterans. Like, for example, like if Yoel Armia, and if you're just joining us late, but if you've been with me the entire time, A, thank you, and B, I'm sorry I'm going to repeat myself here, that the Canadiens were offered. They had a second-round pick on the table for Armia, and they said, nah, we're good. We're good. We're going to keep our guy. We're going to keep this team intact. We're going to see it all the way through, okay? And I love that. I love that decision because the Canadiens made Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon re-strategize their deadline plans. And so if Yoel Armia wants to stay here, and I believe he said already in the last month that he wants to stay in Montreal. So what does that mean? How badly do you want to stay here? Do you want to take a hometown discount? Good, great, grand, wonderful. Let's make that happen. And then maybe if somebody at camp shows themselves, or if you think that there's going to be a different path, then you can trade Yoel Armia. I think Yoel Armia is going to have a tradable contract if, in fact, he does get one before he hits the open market as a UFA. So good strategy across the board. And the biggest plus of all of this is you've rewarded your players for a job well done. You asked them to do a certain thing, and they did the certain thing, and then some. And you can't rug pull these guys. You can't do it. Not for the sake of a second or a third round draft pick. It's not going to happen. And obviously, I hope you're of the opinion that the Canadiens had no business, in the Scott Lawton, Ryan Donato, Ryan O'Reilly type of rental market, overpaying for rentals and giving other teams a bunch of prospects. Like, the Montreal Canadiens are not the Buffalo Sabres. The Montreal Canadiens will not be the farm team for the National Frickin' Hockey League. The Buffalo Sabres are hockey's equivalent to the Montreal Expos, the farm team for the rest of the league. It's crazy. I feel for Sabre fans. It's my pleasure. I love doing them. Happy to do it. Happy that we got our live show on Friday. We had some great guests. You can go back to the live show on Friday. Marco D'Amico off the top. Marco D'Amico joining me from the Grand Caymans on Friday. We had JP O'Connor on at 11:30, so that's about half an hour into the stream, and then about an hour into the stream, because I went for about 2+ hours on Friday live on trade deadline day. And so, like I said, Marco D'Amico off the top. 30 minutes into the stream, JP O'Connor on the Canadiens, and 1 hour into the stream, the great Dan Robertson. So normally I've done a good job of in all the videos I put up every day, I generally put chapters in there, timestamps, right? So you can, if there's something that I'm saying is boring and you have no interest in it, but there's something that's coming a few minutes later in the video, I give you an opportunity to click on that timestamp and you can jump right to that subject. But because yesterday's video was 2 hours and I wasn't going to go back and listen to it all, I didn't put timestamps on the video. So I'm just letting you know right now that's kind of what was there, right? So as always, every Saturday, every Sunday at 9:30 a.m. on YouTube.com. You can just Google my name in YouTube, Shaun Starr, The Shaun Starr Show, and you can find me here Saturdays and Sundays at 9:30. And of course, as always, you can find all my good stuff where you can support the show, everything that goes into either our merch sales or our membership, $2.99 a month to be a member of the Shaun Starr Show, that you're able to kind of help me out and keep this channel going. You can find all our merch with free shipping in Canada, same day shipping if you're in Montreal and you order between 2 p.m. We've got a couple of different hat selections and this 11-ounce dishwasher safe, microwavable coffee mug with an extra wide handle. Extra wide handle, because if you have Shrek hands, you got sausage fingers, this mug will be very, very comfortable. Very, very comfortable. And if you don't have sausage fingers and Shrek hands, you have normal size human being hands, this mug will feel so spacious, so spacious in your normal size hand, not these sausage finger Shrek hands. So the Shaun Starr Show .com. Matthew Blackman. Doing nothing is not a reward, Shaun. They held their end of the bargain. Ken had a hole to fill for them, and he didn't do it. I mean, they held their end of the bargain, and their end of the bargain was Nick Suzuki told Ken Hughes he didn't want his guys traded to Matthew. That was the bargain. The bargain wasn't, as we are to understand it, the bargain wasn't win games, and if you win games, I'm going to go out and get you a depth center. That wasn't the discussion. The discussion, again, don't trade my guys, GM. Oh, you don't want me to trade? Then go win hockey games. Massive game tonight. Joe Dax, most important game of the year. We can have Calgary making the playoffs. Amen. And that's why I'll bring this comment up right now. Thank you, Rick. With a win tonight, the Canadiens both, that's, and I wanted to get to this because it really is the rare, you guys are aware of this? The rare win-win game tonight in Calgary. By the way, thank you, NHL. It's a 7 o'clock our time puck drop, not freaking 10 o'clock tonight Eastern time. 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time puck drop tonight. As Rick correctly points out here, I'm the one that should be giving him $5. With a win tonight, the Habs both improve their playoff hopes and get a better first-round pick as they own Calgary's pick this year. Crazy, crazy indeed, brother. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. So the rare win-win for the Montreal Canadiens. They win tonight, and they're right there in the playoffs. And we'll take a look quickly here on the out-of-town scoreboard for Saturday. 12:30 coming up in 2 hours. The Rangers and Ottawa Senators get going. The Flyers, who cares? They're done. The Bruins are at Tampa Bay at 3 o'clock today. They're done. Florida hosts Buffalo at 6. Maple Leafs and Avs. Habs and Flames. Blackhawks and Predators. And that is it. Islanders Sharks. On Sunday. On Sunday, we have Blue Jackets and Rangers at 6 p.m. on Sunday. And the New York Islanders. When does Ottawa play? Ottawa plays today, and then Monday night, 7:30, Detroit at Ottawa. Out of town scoreboard watching, baby. Some of my favorite things. Oh, is that right? Maybe I should put it in the comments. It just takes 2 seconds. Just hit the thumbs up button on the like. Thank you for that. Sheldon, good morning. I'm okay with the no move. Sometimes the best move you make is the one you don't. Didn't cost us any of our picks and prospects, something that may never pan out. And that's the other thing too, like the math on these guys, like these later round picks making the NHL, or let alone having an impact in the NHL, is like less than 5%. Less than 5%. Good morning, James. I don't believe I've seen James Hill in the chat before. It would be good for the Habs to make the playoffs for the progression of the team and have experience in playing meaningful games at the end of the season. Well, I understand that point of view. I do. I understand. But like, for me, when I think about, the Montreal Canadiens and playing meaningful games, they have been in meaningful games for a while now. The Canadiens have been in playoff mode for a couple. the Canadiens have been in playoff mode since the Four Nations break ended, right? And it's a damn shame. It's more proof to me that an NHL team, like anybody else, is a living, breathing thing. Because how in the hell did this team look so freaking bad down the stretch? How did they look so bad down the stretch? Like, I'm not even asking for them to have won those games. But if we think about the fact that they basically got outscored like 15-6 in 3 games before the Four Nations, and they only had one win in like 10 games, and when they barely beat San Jose in California, they get shut out like twice. They get 6 goals put on them, 5 goals put on them, 4 goals put on them like 5 times. If they were just a teeny weeny bit better, look at here. I have 4-2 to Detroit, 4-3 to New Jersey, 4-1 to Winnipeg, 4-0 loss to Minnesota, 3-2 at Anaheim. Then they beat San Jose. Then they lose 6-3 to LA, 4-0 to the Devils, 5-3 to the Lightning. And then boom, the Four Nations break. Out of the Four Nations, smoking everybody. 5-2, 4-0, 4-3, 4-2, 4-3. Like if they were just a smidge better, if they picked up 2 more points going into the Four Nations break, maybe things look a little bit differently today. But it's fascinating to me. It's fascinating. I am not smart enough to understand it, and I will openly admit to you today. I do not have the mental faculty to be an NHL general manager. Yesterday was so confusing to me, so confusing about you want to reward your guys, you don't want to reward your guys, you want to give them the full vote of confidence, and trust that your vision and your decision making are the right ones more often than not. Like, it is crazy. Like, you and we're here on this channel every Saturday, every Sunday, talking Habs, talking sports, shooting the shit, having fun, having a laugh, and it's great. Wouldn't change it for the world. Super fun. You guys are so engaging. You make this high energy for me because I'm reading your comments. I'm reading as they come along, and my energy is motivated, inspired by what you guys bring to the table, and it just gets so exciting. And we can do this, and we can shoot the breeze and all this stuff. Ken Hughes, Jeff Gordon, Martin St. Louis, man, they live it. They live it 24/7. 24/7. You think Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon were watching Dateline like I was last night? No. They're thinking about their hockey team. They're thinking about Calgary. They're thinking about 1 point out of the playoffs. They're thinking about, man, it's great. We didn't lose Savard. We didn't lose Armia. We still have Christian Dvorak. Like, this is their life. This is their life. We do this as fans. We do this as observers. We do this because we care. That's their life. They are in it 24/7. And I don't think I can handle it because it was a wild ride yesterday. And some people weren't happy. Some people weren't happy that the Canadiens did bupkis, squadoosh, nada, zip, zilch. Alpha Roofing. Peter Brady from Alpha Roofing. Is Alpha Roofing a company in Montreal? Let's take a look. Alpha Roofing. Enter. Alpha Roofing. Markham, Ontario. If that's you, if you live in Markham, Ontario, go take your business to Alpha Roofing. Let me see. Do you have a good rating on Google? Yes, you do have a good rating on Google. Okay, Alpha Roofing. You have my full attention. The answer to that question, Alpha Roofing, is no. As I'm led to believe, the KHL season is going to end later in May. And as a direct result, the Canadiens basically would have to make the Stanley Cup playoffs if they have any chance of seeing Ivan Demidov. So he's not coming. He's not coming. So you can forget about that. Zeph, good morning, Zeph. Good to see you back here on the live stream today. The Canadiens will go through attrition, meaning as the top talent, Demidov, Fowler, take their spots on the team, it allows the others to drop down on their proper chairs to become a solid team. That, my friend, is an excellent comment. Ed Tamboni says, man, how much fun is this? Considering that 3 years ago, we were stinking out the league in the joint, and now here we are. And let me see if I could put this up here. I'll remove that, add this. That's Martin St. Louis talking about how it's very important. And this, to me, it's if you read that comment, it just goes to show you not only is MSL like a Hall of Famer, relatable coach and former player, you could see he's just a great dude. Like I don't know if it's too dramatic to say that he loves his players, but I think there are certain elements that he loves, and he wants to be there for these guys because he knows they're young, they're impressionable, and he wants to help guide them through a tough time. Just I'm just always just a big fan of MSL. Um, let's see if I can find that quote here from MSL. Yeah, here we go. Just to back up your comment, Ed. We can look at this together here. There he is. A little over 3 years ago, I took the job, and I knew it was a rebuilding team, but I feel like we've progressed. I feel like we're on track to do the things we said we're going to do. Is this the year that we flip the needle? Like it's going the other way now. And to me, that's a good sign. So to your point, Ed, Martin St. Louis has a PhD in hockey, and the man knows obviously of what he speaks. And I think if you watch this team and have been watching this team for a while now, I do think we walk away with the impression that they are on track, that they are definitely headed in the right direction. Chris Knobloch, the coach of the Edmonton Oilers, did you catch what he told RDS during that game? That first line of Slav, Suzuki, and Caulfield is one of the elite lines that Edmonton has faced all year long. All year long. Good morning, Joe. Shaun, have you seen the rumors about Demidov's team wanting to have the player sign a new contract? So if you go to my page, I guess I could do this in real time here because I did content on that, and I don't remember exactly when it was, but I did content on that exact question you're asking, and don't believe it. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm going to see if I can find it here. Here it is. Let me leave. 2 weeks ago, we got 6,000 views on that one. Let me see if I can. I'm going to paste it into the chat box, and now you can. Here's the video. Joe Cowan. There's the video. So Joe, you can see I just put it in the comments section. Go watch that video on Roman Rottenberg telling media that he wants Demidov, and that's why he's not playing, or he's a healthy scratch, or he's getting bupkis minutes, blah, 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 blah. It's all pressure tactics. It's all pressure tactics. Roman Rottenberg is trying to get Ivan Demidov to stay. The other threat he had that unless he wins the Gagarin Cup for SKA, he's not leaving. The Gagarin Cup is the KHL Stanley Cup. So if Demidov's team doesn't win the championship, he's not going to the NHL. Yeah. Sure, bud. Roman Rottenberg's the coach. That's that. He could say whatever the frig he wants. It really carries no significant weight. I strongly believe Ivan Demidov will be here next year. So it's just pressure tactics and things to say. And again, he's a coach. He obviously wants to keep his star player in the fold, doesn't want to see him be a one and done kind of guy. So just if you want to consume that content, you want to check that out. Marco D'Amico and I think, do a pretty good job of breaking that down. As James Hill points out here, as we spoke earlier about the Canadian schedule and why they looked the way they did going into the Four Nations break and everything else. There's no doubt. I mean, obviously they were more than they were worse than running on fumes. And they took that challenge on. They were pros. The leadership group of this organization on the ice anyway were pros, and that's a lot to build off. As Randy weighs in here this morning. Good morning, Randy. The future looks bright. Stay the course. Add a 2C this summer. Add Demidov. Fowler is eventually coming. Dobesh will grow. Cap space is very healthy. Hughes is now in a good position. And that's that, right? But here's the other bit of good news. Did you see this? That, my friends, is Kaden Guhle. That I don't know why I fumbled this name. That, my friends, is Kaden Guhle skating on Friday in Brossard after that horrific self-inflicted lacerated quadricep muscle. And great to see Kaden Guhle on the ice in Brossard skating. Ken Hughes was asked about the chances that Guhle rejoins his teammates between now and game number 82. If I were to read between the lines based on what Ken Hughes had to say on Friday's media availability, I would tell you this. If the Montreal Canadiens are a point out of a playoff spot with 4 games to go, I believe Kaden Guhle is going to play. It's a guess. I don't have any inside information. That's me reading between the lines. Whereas if the opposite were to occur and the wheels fall off the bus, so to speak, and Montreal is, 5, 6, 7 points out of a playoff spot, I don't think there's obviously what's the sense? Why would you rush Kaden Guhle back for that hypothetical, I suppose? Hey, what's up, Mitch? I hate that most of Habs media want them to make a punch. We need to suck for guys like, Michael Misa and Gavin McKenna. Uh, Mitch, I think your timing's wrong there, Playboy. I think your timing's quite wrong there. I think you're a little late to the party. The Montreal Canadiens are a point out of a playoff spot. I mean, at what point what do we think they're going to do next year? Because what I've seen in sporadic moments of this season, granted, there's been a lot more, losing trends than winning trends, but the winning trends have been good, in my opinion. They look sustainable, in my opinion. I just think the timing here of this comment is just wrong. I think we're a couple of years off. I'll give you a take right now. Are you ready for this? If the Montreal Canadiens don't make the playoffs in 2025, 2026, aka next season, I think it's going to be a disappointing year. Yeah, I believe it. So I kind of expect the Canadiens to be playoff bound next year. So I am not on board. I am not on board with this. And I don't think the team is either. I think, as we outlined already, and Mitch, if you're just joining the stream, first, thanks for being here. Thanks for the comment. I appreciate it. Secondly, that the Montreal Canadiens have barrels of cash and they've got a cupboard of picks and prospects. And so Montreal is like a fat cat team. And I know I do. And I think there's a good chunk of you watching me right now. We're at 212 people watching us, 57 minutes into this bad boy, that I would think the majority of people want the Montreal Canadiens to spend like fat cats this summer and get that 2C. Not addressing the 2C situation this summer is a fatal flaw. End of sentence. That is not on the table. There's no way it will go unaddressed. It's not going to be Owen Beck's job. It's not going to be Jake Evans' job. It's going to go to a guy who isn't on the Montreal Canadiens right now. And you're not going to see him in a Canadiens uniform on Saturday night. You will see him, though, on opening night next fall when the Canadiens open up. And so, yeah, I can't. There's no part of my hockey brain whatsoever that even thinks for a second in time that Montreal will go into the fall of next season without filling that void. And that void, again, will not be filled by Kirby Dach. That's not going to happen. I will die on that hill. And feel free, in September when you and I are here talking, feel free. Hey, Shaun, remember you Bobo, when you spoke to us on March 8th and you said that void's not going to be filled by Kirby Dach or Beck or Evans? Feel free to put it down my throat. And if you do and I'm wrong, I'll give you every item in my merch shop for free. One of each, that is. That's how strongly I feel about that. But thanks for the comment. I appreciate it tonight. Habs rule. Enjoy the game today. You're welcome. Have a great day, everybody. I've been here since the morning. That's great. As I said before, we do have a very, very loyal audience. Shaun Starr in the car. Yeah, it's been a moment. I still have some T-shirts. Around that. Yeah, nobody. I don't even think Kirby Dach thinks that he's the answer. No, I'm not. I'm good with Kirby Dach on the wing. I'm good with Kirby Dach. Perhaps. So he's got 1 year left, and then he's an RFA. The Canadiens don't need to rush anything with Kirby Dach. He's got, the salary's all right, and the Canadiens still have the leverage on the players' rights. So I think there's room to experiment with Kirby Dach and see where he goes. Jake Evans is the guy. Owen Beck's going to get some love. I can see Oliver Kapanen getting a look before the end of this season. I can even see Oliver Kapanen, if we're talking about going out and making a big trade, getting that proven, because that's what needs to happen. Montreal Canadiens need a proven 2C to come in next year to make that run for the playoffs. And I can see someone, again, I don't know enough about Oliver Kapanen. I know he's having a very good year in the SHL in Europe, but I can see Oliver Kapanen being one of those prospects that maybe is dangled in the summer months in order to attract a big fish and get him in the boat. So I think that's where we're at on this massive game day. So I'm good with the Montreal Canadiens standing pat, giving their team the vote of confidence that they asked for, and the management in turn asked them to do something. And they did. They won 5 in a row, going to a massive, massive, massive game with the Calgary Flames at 7. Hopefully you listen to it on TSN 690. And we'll be back on Sunday morning to recap it all together. And as always, don't forget, you can help support the show by taking a look at everything we have on offer at theshaunstarrshow.com. Free delivery in this country, same day delivery weekdays if you order before 2 p.m. And we'll get that to you the day you order it. And if not, then we'll be able to ship it worldwide, baby, because that's how we roll. So thank you so much for being here with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Tell all your friends. We'll be back Sunday morning at 9:30 for another edition of the Shaun Starr Show live on Zirect. In the meantime, enjoy your Saturday. Enjoy your family. Enjoy the Habs. Let's see them win in regulation in Calgary tonight. And hopefully we're talking about a playoff-bound Montreal Canadiens team when we reconvene Sunday morning at 9:30.